Muting?
No, John, that's not necessary. We're not going to mute. Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tommy D.
Morning, Tommy.
Welcome
Morning.
to my attic. I like having you guys in the attic. Thanks for being here. So really, I have some stuff prepared that I'm going to read from. So I may check in with my notes throughout the morning because I want to be sure I hit upon some of the finer points of why I brought us together today and what this is all about. So I came up with this idea in talking with some of the folks on this call and just saying, you know, there's so much going on right now. And I think this sector, I think people in this nonprofit sector need to come together and have a dialogue. And I didn't make a lot of assumptions about it. I really reached out to see if it was something that folks would think would be a relevant conversation. So I pulled this idea, Fireside Chat, back in the 30s, from 1933 to 1944. FDR would hold these radio type conversations with the electorate. He wanted to connect in some familiarity with the people he served. So I sort of pulled it out of the air last Friday and then did more research on what it was all about, and it totally made sense to call it just this. So I'm going to read you a couple of my notes and then we'll really get started. And I'm lowering my desk. That's what that noise is there. So I said in a discussion with several of my nonprofit friends, I decided that it would be important to have a chat about the state of the nonprofits currently and to explore the challenges with this group, which I believe will lead to a very constructive discussion today. However, I imagine that it'll lead to a number of subsequent conversations and meetings like this as we uncover different topics that are relevant as people are dealing with the challenges of this current state of the world we're living in from the COVID-19 crisis. So I know we've all been on these Zoom meetings before, so you probably know how it works. There's a chat box. So down at the bottom, if you hover down at the bottom, you can you can type in some notes pretty easily there. Share your ideas, share your chats throughout the day. I don't really want this to be any sort of hierarchical conversation. I really want this to be a dialogue. There are several folks that I'm going to introduce now, but I invited people to this meeting because I know the people here all have their own insights, have their own best practices and strategies that they can bring to this conversation. So I welcome that throughout the day, throughout the next, let's say 85 minutes we're going to be together. I may unmute people throughout. So if you type in a conversation in the chat and I think the point can be expanded upon, I'm going to unmute you and ask you to just jump in and have that conversation. For the most part, some people are muted, some people are unmuted right now, but you can unmute yourselves at will as well. So it's pretty free flowing, and I love that the bell keeps ringing. I don't know if you guys will hear that, but that means more and more people keep popping in the door. So welcome. This is the first Fireside Chat for the nonprofits here. I just really want to acknowledge my teammate, my friend, my buddy, and collaborator on a lot of things nonprofit, Christine Deska. Thanks for a lot of the stuff we've done together. Thanks for kind of keeping me on point when I sort of go out way too far in the tangent world. And thanks for being a good teammate. Appreciate you. Thank you. So a lot of these people know you. So
thanks, Tommy. Thanks everybody for joining this morning.
Right on. Thank you. You may know Christine and I do these monthly nonprofit roundtables, which for a long time were actually in person, and nothing is in person these days, as we all know. So we've been doing them here on Zoom. And I would say that although it's probably not as fun on Zoom, there's been even just different advantages to doing things virtually. I mean, we had people checking in from Philadelphia and Ohio on our last roundtable as a result of me just getting the word out there, which nobody was probably driving out to Hauppauge or Melville from Philly for one of our roundtables, but it's pretty easy when you just log on to Zoom with a cup of coffee. So now really through this dialogue, Christine and I made a decision to have some featured speakers that I'm going to introduce now. And I've had a great opportunity to know these three speakers in a variety of different ways, some of which I'll talk about, but I'm probably going to, again, refer to my notes a bit to make sure I hit on sort of the finer points. These are the folks that, just like many of the other leaders on this call, are on the front lines every day, improving and impacting the lives of, for the most part, Long Island is who we're serving here, but the tri-state area as well, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. So first on, and really in no particular order other than how I prepared this, Katie McGowan founded Horsabilty, the Center for Equine Facilitated Therapies, in 1993, combining her love for both people and animals and her passion for education. All three of these folks have received numerous accolades and awards, and we don't have the time to go into all that today, but I will say this: Katie's won many awards, but the opportunity that when she and I dialogue on stuff that always comes up is the 2016 participation she had with Horsabilty in the Goldman Sachs 10K Small Business Program. Look, Katie, you're a visionary. We have awesome conversations. I'm so excited for you to be a part of this. Could you just jump in real quick, because I didn't want to do a whole dialogue about the organization. Could you just jump in and tell us 45 seconds about Horsabilty, and then I'll continue to introduce you, and we'll start the show.
Sure. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Christine. And thank you to Renee and Mark for joining on the panel as well. And thanks everybody for being here. It's such an honor to be with all of you on the monthly and especially on the Zoom meeting today. So, and as John said earlier, we do embrace the challenge to get through this as the leaders of our organizations and all this. Horsabilty, like all of your organizations, are here to serve the community, and we work with children and adults with special needs, and we work with 2.5-year-olds to 94-year-olds and across the spectrum. We have a volunteer-based organization, so we also work with over 200 volunteers a week, and we serve clientele, about 300 families a week, both on our property at SUNY Old Westbury to off property as well. We're educational. We are therapeutic. We are also in the healthcare system. So we have a wide variety of programs. And when this is all over and we cannot be social distancing, I welcome you all to the farm to see who we are and how we can work together.
Katie, first of all, thank you. And I'm throwing a party at the farm. I'm not wearing, I'm swearing, that's not a joke. I'm not wearing this jacket, but it's on me, a day at the horses. They're not racing, John, but we could probably still smoke cigars there. Next is another friend of mine who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. And man, like, she gives me a run for my money because I thought I had a lot of energy and could talk and have fun. But Renee Daniel Flagler, the executive director of Girls Inc. of Long Island, is an award-winning writer, an adjunct professor, passionate about empowering women and youth to pursue their passion. So it's no surprise that Renee runs an organization that is all about inspiring girls to be strong, smart, and bold. And that piece gets me because I have 2 daughters downstairs, and I'm always thinking about how to best empower my daughters and my sons. She also has many awards and achievements, including the founding board member and former board chair of LEAP Global, which is Literacy Empowerment Action Project. And Renee also founded the Renee Daniel Flagler Scholarship Program. So Renee, I know you're on my screen. There you are, I see you. Can you do the same like Katie did, if you wouldn't mind, just giving us a quick background on Girls Inc. and the great programs that were before and are still existing in different forms now?
Happily, you dug in the crates for that bio. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be able to have this conversation alongside Katie and Mark. I'm the executive director of Girls Inc. of Long Island, where we inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. We are a youth-serving organization, and advocacy organization fighting for girls' rights, gender equity, and equality for all girls. And we provide research-based curriculum for girls that helps to bridge the gap between academics and successful living, to provide them with everything that they need to truly be successful. Strong, smart, and bold also equates to being healthy, educated, and independent. So we teach and support girls through mind, body, mentally, emotionally, academically, as well as through life skills. Our curriculum includes things like financial literacy, college and career readiness programming, STEM programming. We even have a program on the political process. Our Project Bold programs is all about girl safety, how to be safe in this world and this environment, all kinds of really essential information and skills like that. And I am the proud executive director. I do consider it a privilege to be able to work for and lead this organization. That's it.
Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys both being here. And so I sit on the committee for the Long Island Imagine Awards, and I know Ken's here. So Ken, thanks for being here. I'm sure you're going to have some great insight as well as we go through this morning's conversation. So I've had that privilege and honor to sit on in fact, it's how I met Renee. She was sitting at a table next to me when Girls Inc. won the Rising Star Awards a couple of years ago. And she didn't know who I was back then, but I was like hugging them and like, I remember we took a picture together. Being on the committee gives you the opportunity to meet some pretty incredible people. And during the semifinalist round this year, I got to interview Mark Cox of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island. Mark has been the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island since 2013, and prior to that had served for 7 years at the same organization in the role of Chief Development Officer. So I got to sit down with Mark, and two of the things that really stuck out from our conversation, and I'm sure this will remind you that we had this conversation, Mark. One was the focus on, as an organization, and from Mark's leadership, as that the organization, both the board and the staff and the partners of the organization should be representative of the community that communities that the organization is serving. So a major focus on diversity across all different lines. And that was something stood out for me, Mark, in our conversation, and I'll always remember and appreciate that. The other piece that stuck out for me is Mark's not running one organization, but is actually running two organizations, both Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island and the donation center that is part of the organization. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm explaining that wrong, but what comes with that is two boards, two staffs, and all the other pieces and nuts and bolts that goes with what it would be like to run two organizations. So Mark implemented a strategy that provided a 300% increase in the donation center's net profits, all of those dollars which moved over to support the mentoring program that Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island is involved with. 1992 graduate of Hofstra, 4 years, played lacrosse and football, and won the Iron Mike Award, which I'm going to ask you later on. I don't know if that has to do with Mike Tyson or not, but no? All right, that's what it made me think of. Which that award is given to the best collegiate football player on Long Island. So that's certainly a big deal. And I remember commenting in your office that day, there was a helmet and I think football and some photographs there. Mark's also a member of the 2019 Malloy College Energia Partnership Leadership Academy, which, as I learned more and more about, is a big deal and well respected here on the island. So Mark, if you could do the same that the ladies did as well, just introducing a bit about the organization, and then we'll sort of get involved in the conversation. Thanks, Mark.
Sure. Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate the introduction. Definitely no expert. I do love the fact that we've got such a great conglomerate on the call with a lot of great minds, and I think that's what all of this is all about. But as far as Big Brothers Big Sisters, most people know what the organization is. We're very fortunate to have a pretty high profile as a national organization. It's been around for over 100 years. We are the Long Island affiliate. We've been in existence since 1977. My predecessor, Bill Tiemann, was the CEO for the organization for 34 years. And then I've been pretty much the second CEO. So we're the only two so far. Basically, we're a mentoring agency for youth on Long Island between the ages of 7 and 16. And we take volunteers from the community and we basically screen them, interview them, and then we pair them with a child who's in need of an adult role model who can teach them great life lessons, help work with them on their self-esteem, build their confidence, and help them do better in school, and really just be there as a friend and someone in addition to, the guardian that's in their home, to be able to help give them some guidance and expose them to opportunities that they might not normally be able to achieve. And like Tommy had mentioned, I do run a separate not-for-profit called Big Brothers Big Sisters Long Island Donation Center, and it's pretty much a clothing collection operation that was set up probably 22 years ago by my predecessor. And we collect used clothing and household goods. We have a partnership with somebody who we sell it to, and basically it's run as a business, even though it's a 501c3. And the goal is to net as much money as we can at the end of the year. So 100% of the proceeds go to support our mentoring agency, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for being here, for being a part of this, for spending the time on a call with me on Monday, and just for being great leaders. I truly appreciate that. And that's just real talk. Three themes, aside from what the topics are going to be, that are really have hit me and what I want to mention in there. They all start with the letter C. And I look at this as really a safe zone for us. I am just here to facilitate. And if I have some knowledge to bring, I'll bring a bit of it, but that's not my role today. So I expect from everybody else really just the 3 C's, as I like to call them today. The compassion. We're going through some stuff right now. So the more compassion we can have for each other, I think the better we'll all be. Candor. Let's be real. Let's just do that. Let's have a real open dialogue. And like I say, my expectation is people are going to find a mentor on this call. People are going to find a mentee on this call. People are going to find a new collaborator on this call. And that takes me to the 3rd C, collaboration. You know, from what Katie does, collaborating with other organizations. And I know Renee collaborates a lot. And obviously Mark collaborates with other organizations, and we'll get into some of that today, but you may find a new collaborative partner on this call today. And that, I know that'll happen more than once today. And that's what excites me the most. If you know me, I'm all about how do we bring these people together. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for the comment on the jacket. I appreciate it. 2 + 2 is some number way higher than 4. I don't really know what it is, but because it grows in some sort of exponential fashion. And I think, a friend of mine, Tom Gretsch, always uses this quote, rising tide lifts all boats or lifts all ships. And I think that's, as a sector, what we can do. So with that, that's going to be a little bit, there'll be a little less of my soapboxing about certain things. But I really want to turn the dialogue over to our 3 panelists, if you will call them that today. And I'm going to bring up a slide. And Christine, I'm going to ask you as a favor to just kind of keep an eye on chat box. If people want to jump in, just let me know, and by all means, just sort of barge in and bring that together. Can everybody see the screen here? Can you see the screen I'm sharing?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So we did this already. This is the introduction, but this is sort of brought to you by our agency, the Vanguard Insurance Agency. That's your boy, Tommy D, dressed silly with a crooked tie. The Nonprofit Resource Hub, which is an organization that 5 of us have founded, which is a resource organization. It is a nonprofit to serve the sector. It's Serini and Associates, Vanguard Insurance Agency, Nonprofit Sector Strategies, Triumph International Business Consulting, our friend Danette O'Connell, and David Goldstein's firm, Sir Tillman Ballin. And also today, obviously, Nonprofit Sector Strategies, Christine and Frank Orzo. I did want to go around and do some introductions, but I don't think we have that ability to do that today. For some reason, I don't see all you guys. So to go back there. Can you still
don't see this? I don't see the screen either, Tom.
No, nobody saw the screen? Okay.
Yeah, I don't see
No,
it.
no, I don't see it.
All right, maybe if I hit the right buttons, the right things will happen like that. There we go.
There we go.
I only spent 90 minutes preparing for this morning ahead of time, so I would have thought I had it figured out. So you'll see, this is what I was referring to was sort of our sponsors here and who helps us put together the time. And then these are our topics. This is what so Katie, Renee, Mark, Christine, and I jumped on a call on Monday, as I mentioned, and we really were just kind of brainstorming on topics and things that are relevant. That being said, I'm sure there's other things that are concerns and challenges that people are going through. So share those in the chat. And like I say, I'll say it, my expectation is we'll have many calls after this about different topics. So at this point, what I want to do is kick it over to my panel. And why don't we start with Mark? I see you on my screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Just if you could, and I think it was Renee who said we're sort of building the plane while flying it, which I've been involved with challenges like that in the past. And can you speak about some of the toughest challenges? And then if we could go, why don't we just do in alphabetical order? It's not alphabetical order, but MKR. We'll do that. So Mark, Katie, and then Renee. We'll do it that way. Mark, go right ahead if you wouldn't mind.
All right. I mean, again, I don't think any of us are experts on this, so I'm looking forward actually to other input and feedback on what everybody's been going through this situation. I can pretty much give you our situation. I mean, it's amazing. You could never prepare for this. There is no playbook for this whole situation, and it seems to have leveled off a little bit, where there's at least somewhat of normalcy. But for the first 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, I felt like you made a plan, and then an hour later, that plan was not even close to the right plan, and you had to make a different plan. So one of the things that, I've been making sure that I do is utilize my board. I mean, that's why we have a board. And I know when we talked yesterday to prepare for this call, to me, that's been the best sounding board. And, these are individuals who are professionals in all different industries. And, you can have a plan, you can set a plan for your organization, but it is very helpful to run that plan by some really bright minds and get some feedback on and make some decisions. And for us, we're an organization that's based on one-to-one mentoring. That's our whole mission. And with all this social distancing, and we also have, in addition to our community-based programs, we have site-based programs, which are partnered with all the school districts. And with pretty much everything being shut down, it was a tremendous hit to our future and our immediate programs. And with that came, making some tough decisions. And I think for me personally, I know I expressed this when we were on the call, but at the beginning, it was really tough. I'm a compassionate person. I care about people, and I'd worked so hard over the last 7 years to build this organization. We more than doubled our staff and the number of children we served. And in an instant, you've got to make decisions to basically cut the majority of your staff because there's no work there. With as I mentioned, with all the social distancing and all the halts that were put on in the school districts, we really didn't have much work that we could do. So I sat with my board, put together a plan, and we made a lot of cuts. And the one feedback that I did get from one of my board members that ran a business, which was really, I think, beneficial, was when you're going to make cuts, be as drastic as you can be. I know, and he said, I know it's tough, but it's much easier to hire people back and quicker than to have to go a month and then make additional cuts because of the environment that it'll create. And, that was something that I didn't think about because I was trying to have a balance between my compassion for my employees and, thinking about the future of our organization. So I would definitely say, and I'm sure everybody on this call probably already has, utilize your board to the best of their ability during this situation and communicate. I'm set up. I have every 2 weeks, I have a standing call with my board. And we kind of classify it as an emergency board meeting. But, it may last a half hour. It may last an hour and a half, depending on the topic and the situation that we're discussing. But just always being in communication.
That's great, Mark. Thank you. And communication is one of the things we're going to talk about as we proceed. But Katie, because I think when we hear the stories of other people, Mark, how you said, like how this hit you, we know we're not alone, because everybody on this call who's in the leadership role has experienced these types of emotions. Katie, same kind of ideas, if you wouldn't mind jumping in.
Sure, Mark, thank you. And I can echo everything Mark had to say. And I think we all can. This is, a huge, tough challenge for all of us. immediately we had to go into crisis mode and figure out what that was. And, I am grateful for the Goldman Sachs 10K SB background that I have, because I did have to go right into business plan mode. And for anybody, just as a side note, that does not know about the Goldman Sachs 10K SB offering, please look that up, because it was the most amazing education that I was given, and they do offer it to not-for-profit organizations. So please look that up.
What does that mean?
We did. Pardon?
Please repeat the name for the program.
It's the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, and it was an initiative that was offered, and it still is, and Goldman Sachs is offering. It's a business education. It's a 16-week education that is a grant given to small businesses, and they offer it to 1 to 2 not-for-profit leaders each cohort. So
Thanks,
it was
Katie.
an amazing gift. Yeah. So with that being said, I too had to go into business mode right away and find that balance between compassion and business. And it went from our strategic plan of 3-year planning to 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks went to 2 hours. And then those 2 hours had to span out to, and I absolutely love Renee's example of flying the plane and building it at the same time, because that summed up exactly how I was feeling. At the same time, and I hope everybody took advantage of the PPP from the Small Business Association, because that just came through. And right now, just to kind of go back and forth to where we were at then and where we're at now, the monies are coming through in the next day or two. So that now, where our challenge is those that we furloughed once we made those decisions. Now our decisions are, who do we bring back? Because 90% of our cash flow is programming. So these are the challenges that we are, up against now, because we don't have programming. So now the challenge is that we're first, who do we cut? Who do we keep? All those decisions. Now we have money, but now these are different challenges. So to Mark's point also is, go right back to our board, go to the experts, go to our, our CPA, who is our treasurer, go to our financial advisors, go to our lawyer, who is an expert in labor law. These are the people that we have to call upon, because, we might not have needed them as much throughout the year, but I've had to call upon them, and they are amazing, amazing people that have brought me through every step of the way. And I've been on more phone calls with them on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. So I recommend that as well. And I've been on daily phone calls with my leadership team, those that are not furloughed. I also recommend that, and what's been recommended to me is keep in contact with all my staff, even though it's at a furloughed, but I have to call it a catch-up. I can't call it a staff meeting because I'm legally not allowed to have them on a staff meeting, but I want to keep in contact with them. I want them to know what's going on.
Stay there a second. So, because there's things that
Sure.
are popping up for me. What did you call it? A catch-up versus a staff meeting? That might be something people want to make a note of. And you're saying that
Sure.
in reference to furloughed versus currently employed people? Is that it? And
Correct.
words
Correct.
have meaning, right? So we got to be careful with that. So you're calling it a catch-up. Okay, good.
Very, in this time, I was, very strongly guided that, everybody's emotional right now. And even though everybody is all for our organizations, and we think that they're our, they love us and they love our organizations and they love working for the organization and so on. When people get their money cut and when they get their livelihood cut and so on and so forth. And, I have staff that are planning weddings, and I have staff that are planning, vacations, and staff that are planning their life and so on. And all of a sudden they're furloughed. Then one wrong move on our part, they could go legal on us, So not saying that that's where they're going, and that's not the place that I come from as a manager, as a leader, as, the executive director of the organization. That's not how I lead. but that's the guidance that I'm getting, and it's very important that I have to pay attention to that. So it's a catch-up. I call it a catch-up, and I invite them to a catch-up. If they want to join us, they can. And if they don't, they don't have to. They have joined us every time. But it's just these things that we have to pay attention to, because we can't get lost in all the hysteria of what is going on and lose sight of the legalities of things that are really important during this time. So just things like that. But yeah, and then also keeping in touch with everybody, whether it be staff, and I think we'll go through that with communication, but keeping in touch with all our constituents and on a regular basis, and making a schedule for that, and turning my my three-year strategic plan into a 3-month plan, into a 3-week plan, and into an immediate plan. That's what I've had to do, which has been very helpful. And I sent Tommy something that he'll share with all of you that was very, very, I thought was very helpful. It was from Philanthropy, the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and it was a checklist, which he'll send to everybody. I just thought it was marvelous.
I'll get that out, and if anybody has other resources or materials that they want to share, we do have a LinkedIn group, Christine, for the Nonprofit Resource Hub community, right? And I would welcome you guys to plug into that, and we'll get you details after the call. But Katie, thanks for sharing. I'm going to pause for a second. Renee, before I go to you, sure. Ken, you're still here?
Yep.
So we have our resident nonprofit guru, Ken Serini, on the call. Ken, thank you for being here. I'm glad you were able to make your schedule fit to join us. So if you could, I saw in the chat, and I switched off of the screen. I'm not sharing anymore because I'm trying to read the chats too. Ken, I saw you mention your call this afternoon, but maybe you can address some of what Katie was talking about with PPP, and how do we get forgiven after the fact and things like that. I'll let you take it from there for a couple minutes. Thanks, Ken.
Sure, no problem. I think everybody at this point knows what the PPP is, or at least heard of the PPP. And hopefully many of the nonprofit organizations have gone out and applied for PPP loans. Because again, it's at a worst case, it's cheap money. It's a loan that will provide a 2-year loan at 1% interest. So that's something that all nonprofits who have been impacted should consider. And when you think about impact, you have to consider the fact that if you have a cost-based funding stream, and you're continuing to get funded under that cost-based funding stream, you might not be impacted. So again, something you have to assess on your side. But everybody who needs it should apply for the PPP. It's through your local bank. Most banks are taking it. And as far as the forgiveness piece, the rules are not out yet surrounding how that forgiveness is going to work. The indications are that it's going to be over the 8-week period of time from the time you receive the money. The forgiveness will be forgiveness of salaries paid to staff. It'll be forgiveness of health benefits. It'll be forgiveness of pension contributions made by the employer, not employee. It's state unemployment insurance. If you're large enough and you have to pay an MTA tax, it's the MTA tax. And then there's a factor in there for rent and utilities. Rent, from what we're understanding under the new frequently asked questions, is not just rent for the space, but could also be rent for any equipment that you're renting. And if you don't rent and you own your building, that includes mortgage interest. And again, there could be some expansion on what that definition of mortgage interest is going to be also. As I said, the regulations are not yet out, but organizations are receiving monies now. So it's very important to understand that what you need to do and the controls are in place. We are doing a call today at between 3:15 and 4:45 on the PPP next steps. So you pretty much an update of what's going on from that perspective, and some things and concerns that people need to kind of keep in mind with respect to the PPP. If anybody would like to, thank you, Tommy. There's the information on it on the screen. So if anybody would like to participate in that, just reach out to us. They can get information. We're more than happy to send this out to them. Just put a little note in the chat, and I'll make sure you guys get a invite to the call.
I just found it. It's right on the website. It's at sereniandassociates.com under the section events, and it's the first event that pops up. And we can share that link with you as well, or you can just send me a note if I don't get it in the chat. Send me an email, tdimisa@vgdny.com, tdimisa@vgdny.com. Ken, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else? Did you want to?
Yeah, the only other thing I just wanted to say real quick is I know there was a discussion regarding unemployment. Keep in mind that some nonprofit organizations have chosen to be self-insured for unemployment purposes. So if you do let people go, if you're furloughing people, there could be an additional cost associated with that with respect to the self-employed component of unemployment if you chose to be self-employed.
Very smart.
So just something to kind of keep in mind.
Thank you again, Ken.
Tommy, if I can jump in for a second too, regarding the PPP.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't already applied.
Amanda, just tell us who you are before you do that.
Sorry. I'm the president and CEO of the Trade Association of America. So I just want to encourage everybody on that. If you haven't yet applied, do it now. Your best bet is to go to the smaller outlets. Don't go to the big, Chase, Bank of America. We went to Chase. We're stuck in a queue. We're probably not going to see any of our money anytime soon. And I say that because right now, out of Bloomberg government announcements, they're saying that the money will dry up by Thursday. They've gotten such an outpouring so far about, I'm just looking at this now, about 257 billion has been approved, and they've gotten 1.1 million applications, and the total program is 349 billion. So in all likelihood, it'll all be gone by Thursday. They're trying to do an extension, but all the members are in recess until the 4th of May. So, I encourage you, if you haven't yet put in an application, do it like now. And again, go to one of your smaller banks where the queue is not going to be quite as long, because the likelihood that your application will get approved will be higher. You don't have to have a banking account with the smaller outlets. It does make it easier for the purposes of tracking the expenditures, but it's not a requirement of the program. So I just wanted to say that because we were having this conversation yesterday. Our public policy person, reached out to me to let me know that this was the update on it. So I thought it was worth noting for all of you.
Thank you for saying that, Amanda. And that's what I want this conversation to be all about, is if you know something, bring it up. So you go to the Ken Serini webinar 3:15 to 4:45. The banks are open, so you get on the phone with your bank at 4:46. So if you haven't done it yet, you can learn how to do it and then go do it today. Renee, I'm going to move over to you. It's been a lifetime since, so I'm going to go back to what my question was originally, but just how has this sort of landed on you within the last month, and what are some of the tough decisions that you've had to work through, and just give us some insight if you could. Thanks, Renee.
So I'm pretty sure that everyone will agree that it kind of landed in their lap like a boulder. I'm a writer, so I like using words in interesting ways. So one of the most interesting things, and I've had this conversation with some of the fellow leaders here on this call, as well as some of the other executive leaders from Girls Inc. across the network, is that there's no precedent. There's no historical data. There's no, let's do what we did last time. There's no guidebook instructions. We've never had a pandemic before. So the most interesting thing has been navigating this while having to make decisions that not only impact, you and your immediate staff, but impacts you, your staff, the people that you serve, and in an exponential way. So if you're making a decision that impacts the staff, but in this particular situation, because it's a pandemic, when they go home, what impacts them is also impacting their family and things like that. So it's been focusing on having to try to make the best possible decision, whether it's a light decision or a tough decision, but just trying to employ everything that you have in your stockpile of experience and information and mentors, mentees, colleagues, people that you know who are just really smart, your board, sitting down with the board of directors, having frequent conversations, just to be able to try to reinforce the best possible strategies to implement in this particular time. So decisions where that have to be made kind of fast, in an environment where you don't have the luxury of time to say, okay, let's think this through, let's do this, because of the fact that things are changing so quickly, which is why I keep using the term building the plane while you're flying it. Having to make the right decision or the best decision without having backup, without having a lot of time, without having the resources, and understanding the impact that your decision has to make has probably been one of the most challenging things. Whether it's, how long are we able to keep staff on, or should we go for the PPP, which we did. Unfortunately, we did get an approval. Having to cut events. So we have a breakfast that we have every year. It's very well attended. Last year we had 260 people, well over, our anticipated 200 people. It's become a revenue generating vehicle for us, especially for operations costs. I mean, we know in nonprofits how that goes with, our restricted funds and our unrestricted funds, and you want to try to get as much unrestricted funds into your organization as possible, because it allows you to, do what you have to do in order to take care of the business in an environment where more and more people, more and more donors, they want all of your funds to go to programming, but you need to run the business. So, making difficult decisions like, do we postpone, do we alter, do we cancel altogether these revenue generating opportunities, when at this time you need your revenue the most. You really need to rely on what's coming in order to fill the gap of what's not happening or what's not coming in because of the inability to run programming like you normally run programming. So just making decisions in a sea of uncertainty has probably big.
Renee, let me ask you, because it's lonely at the top, right? It's in leadership, you turn to the left, you turn to the right, sometimes there's nobody there.
Right.
So again, you can go to your board, but are there other sort of mastermind groups that folks are aware of? I mean, maybe this turns into something like that. Are there, I know from, and we discussed this, and sort of there's like a differentiation maybe from if you're let me look at my notes, if you're an affiliate or if you're an, like, let me just say what I'm thinking. If, maybe this came up in our prep call, with Mark and Renee being affiliates or franchise models of larger entities, and Katie's organization, a lot of other organizations are self-founded. And, do you find that you can count on people who sort of have the same challenges inside of an organization that looks like yours? This is not just a Renee question. I'm asking because I don't know the answer. Is there somebody that you can go to, that you lean on, that, sometimes you can't lean on your board. Sometimes, right? I guess, isn't there some vulnerability? Maybe they can't know that you don't know, right? Although most of us don't know everything anyway, but I'll stop and wait for some answers there.
So it's vulnerable, and you kind of have to allow yourself to be able to say, I don't know the answer. And, I'm sure Mark will agree that being part of the network does help, but all the networks are also not in our local area.
Right.
We have that's unique to Long Island. So you do need your other partners, other leaders across Long Island. You need your board members, you need your mentors, you need groups. AFPLI has been a huge asset to me because, everybody's talking about, what are we doing in fundraising, at this time.
I would just add to that. We are fortunate, Renee and I are fortunate that we're an affiliate of a national organization. I know for myself, I've always been trying to associate myself with a group that are larger than what I am, because those are the people you're going to learn the most from. And I would say for anybody on this call, if you're not fortunate enough to be in a larger organization or an affiliate of a larger organization, that's what you really need to find a group that works for your organization, where you can surround yourself with similar thinking minds, but maybe people that are at a different level than you to strive towards. And I think obviously that's what Tommy's trying to create with what's going on right here is, you know, I'm happy. And again, I'm definitely not an expert, but I'm always happy to, you know, brainstorm with other leaders of organizations or development people of organizations, because that's my background, to try to help. You know, there are organizations that are much smaller than what Big Brothers Big Sisters are, and I would love to help them out. Just like, you know, I'm looking to the other organizations in my national organization to help me out. You know, I want to know, how did these other Big Brothers Big Sisters get to serve 2,000 kids when I'm only serving 600? So that's what I would add.
So I'll add to that as well, being the person that doesn't have the bigger corporation behind us. However, yes, thank you, Tommy and Christine and Frank and everybody here, because this is an amazing opportunity to have such a group of esteemed leaders to be a part of, and to trust, you know, the support of everybody in the non-for-profit sector. You know, today at 2 o'clock, I have a meeting with those that are in my specific industry, which I'm, you know, looking forward to that as well. And it's across the United States. So I echo, you know, getting that support and that mentorship. And, you know, just like we were talking on Monday about, you know, even though it's hard to ask at this time for fundraising and so on and so forth, yet it is easier at this time as well, is how I see it, because everybody knows we need the help. So today, to reach out to somebody and say to those experts, can you help me? Can you guide me? Can you mentor me? Can you support me? People know we need the help. So it's almost, to me, an easier ask. I do want to just, Tommy, if I could segue for 1 second, because I reached out to my banker at BNB. I just texted her just to give anybody the support that they need. I said, do you want me to recommend? Because people were talking about the PPP. She just wrote, she can provide them direction on how the bank is handling non-BNB customers. Primarily, the applicant is required to establish, of course, a deposit relationship with them, but she's happy to give them guidance. All I could tell you is that BNB has been an amazing bank for me. Of course, I'll give them a plug and think they're amazing. However, I truly think they are amazing. I'm also a Chase banker, but BNB has the majority of everything for us. They gave us our loan for our indoor arena and so on and so forth. So not to take up that time, but if anybody is looking for the
feel
PPP,
free to share.
amazing.
Feel free to share your banker's information. We don't have any sponsors here as far as it goes. So go ahead. I'm okay with you putting that person's information. And if she
I would echo that as well.
Yeah, BNB as well, Mark. Yeah. Awesome. We actually have.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to answer. That's Wendy from Queen Centers.
Wendy, so glad you're here. I saw you pop in. I'm so happy to see you.
Thank
you.
Good
morning.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for doing this. So I'd just like to speak to you. Mentioned about affiliates, and obviously it's very what we do. I'm with Queen Centers for Progress. We're a CP state affiliate, similar to CP Nassau, which you guys have a lot of experience with, and while it helps us in some ways, at the beginning of this, it was really not a big help because we were all left to kind of fend on our own in terms of like PPE and all the other things that we need to take care of our individuals. So it was pretty scary that first week when the reality was sinking in that, we have people whose lives depend on us. John, you were here, and I see you are in a similar situation at Anabic. And it's really scary, and it's really, so I think that our agency mobilized quickly, and we did everything we had to do in terms of being able to, it was like a scavenger hunt for PPE for our guys. We literally drove hundreds of miles to get whatever we could in masks and other stuff. But as things started to kind of calm down, being part of the affiliate in terms of advocacy and everything else has really helped us out. And to know that, there's resources out there. Anyone who deals with OPWDD knows that on a good day, under normal circumstances, regulations change daily. And during this whole pandemic, they've changed hourly. So it's a real challenge in terms of dealing with regulations and everything else. But I think that we've done a great job at that. And in terms of fundraising, two of our biggest events are coming up in the next 6 months, and they're both in jeopardy. We managed to squeeze one last event in before this happened. And we're lucky for that, but you know, it's the whole new set of challenges in terms of how we're going to go forward. And I agree with you, Katie. You know, there is not often in our field of developmental disabilities, there's not often urgency. You know, American Red Cross and all these national organizations that are dealing with disasters and everything else, there's always a sense of urgency. And we have that sense of urgency now. So on one hand, it is easier to make that ask. My department, I have a staff of 2 people, and I work with a part-time person as well. You know, our goal right away was like, okay, we're all working from home. How do we stay in touch with our constituents? How do we develop a better relationship than we possibly had before with a lot of people? So we put systems in place where we have business, you know, once a week we do a business type of networking events on Zoom. We have chat groups for our families. We have chat groups for our individuals. And we just try to involve as many people as we can and stay connected and stay engaged with our constituents on every level. And, you know, so it seems to be working, and it seems to be helping.
Wendy, I thought I was on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for, I know you had a meeting right before this, so I really appreciate you being here and appreciate your insight. And I got to be honest, I had forgotten that piece, that although I was aware, I mean, you know, my colleague and buddy, Ed Probst, sits on the board of CP in Nassau County. He's here in the room with us. And I remember him making a plea for CP Nassau, and actually I think another friends of ours at Aid to the Developmentally Disabled who needed the PPE. And I forgot that piece coming here today. Like, that's actually, you know, those folks are on the front lines working with people who have disabilities and have the needs. So again, just more awareness, and thank you for being here, and thanks for bringing that point up. I want to switch for a second, and then I want to talk a little bit about communication and fundraising. But Heather, I'm going to unmute you. Heather Edwards, just introduce yourself. And you made a point. I think you have to unmute yourself. There you go. You made a point, and I wanted, hi, so just tell us who you are, and then I wanted you to just expand on the point you made in the chat, if you could.
Sure. So I am the executive director for the Allied Foundation. We are a one-person operation. We have a board of 6 members. We are founded by pediatricians. One of our biggest focuses right now is addressing diaper need that exists across Long Island. And basically what that means is low-income families don't have access to diapers to keep their babies clean, dry, and healthy. So the way we used to operate and the way we've sort of moved forward is we work with about 30 partner agencies across Long Island to distribute diapers. Last year, we distributed about 45,000. As you can imagine, with everything that is going on, the need is significant. I think pretty much daily I get 6, 7 emails and about a dozen phone calls for families, moms, agencies that are struggling to get diapers. People are hoarding them. Families who really struggle financially, they go to the store, they can't get them. And they cannot use SNAP benefits or WIC monies to purchase diapers. So they basically are resorting to a lot of unsafe measures to keep their babies, have some form of diaper or shirt or something on them. So as part of our membership with the National Diaper Bank Network, we have access to suppliers, because that's probably the biggest challenge is supply chain management and actually having the product available to purchase to bring to Long Island. So the second challenge that we have is distribution, because clearly I'm one person, and a lot of our partner agencies, food pantries, shelters, a lot of them have different, some had to temporarily close. So we've sort of shifted focus, and we're actually working with larger organizations who have distribution chains in place. Specifically right now, we're working on an initiative to infuse about 35,000 diapers to Long Island, also to Queens, also to Brooklyn, and we've even received calls as close as the Bronx, teen moms, different programs, people in need of diapers. So the need is growing. We are actively working with 3 suppliers, and probably within the next month, we'll have, through Long Island Cares, about 35,000 diapers in the Long Island community. We still struggle with wipes. Baby wipes are a huge challenge to get because pretty much everybody hoarded them. Even a lot of people who don't have babies have hoarded them for themselves. People actually have been buying them for their pets. So it's kind of a really crazy time. And I think what we found that works is that we partner with organizations that have distribution chains. We're also talking with Island and Harvest, of course. And as we can, get supplies, we will then infuse them into Long Island. But I think, funding continues to be a challenge. Obviously, it costs money to purchase diapers. We're not accepting donations of actual diapers right now for various reasons. They all have to be brand new, packaged for safety's sake. We're not encouraging anybody to go out and start picking things up. It's just not really what we're being told to do. We're trying to adhere to those guidelines. So we're really working on a national level with Huggies, large brands, to bring them in, and hopefully, I'm hopeful that in the next month we will do so.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for sharing one of my favorite words, collaboration. If there are certain organizations that have distribution chains, I mean, I know those 2 words. I'm not exactly sure what they mean, but if you know what they mean, then reach out to Heather and or me, and I'll connect you to Heather. I try to be funny once in a while, guys. There's been a lot of stuff going on in the chat. So my next, and I'm going to tell you something, we had sort of a quasi agenda today, and I've got to be honest with you, I really don't care if we hit all the points because we're doing exactly what I envisioned us doing. So thank you. John DiBiase, my friend, my buddy, my pal, you had something you wanted to jump in from a group home and nursing home perspective. First, tell us who you are.
John DiBiase. I retired in January, on January 1st, actually. And I just told Wendy I kind of feel guilty that I did because maybe I missed this fight. And I know from my class that I own, that the folks in my class, a lot of them work at nursing homes and hospitals. And they're going through hell. And Wendy, I'm sure that your group homes are going through hell. I have spoken with a couple of members of my former board of directors who can't visit their kids. Group homes are locked down. Nursing homes are locked down. When my uncle died, he died at a nursing home, and the Franciscan order actually had to make a special plea to release his body so that he can be buried. So it's a tough time logistically for things that we took for granted, things that we said, okay, I can go get toilet paper. I could go get Tums, and there's no Tums on the shelves. It's really building the airplane while we're flying. I said before, I said, all battle plans go to hell as soon as the shooting started. And well, we're in the middle of the shooting. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, John. Ed Probst, you put something in the chat. Why don't you jump in, introduce yourself, tell us what it is.
Morning, everyone. Jumped in a little bit late here because I was running around, as most of us are, helping a teacher with technology, helping kids learn. And yesterday I was on a call and somebody was roaming around their house and I got completely busy. So I didn't want to do that to all of you. So what I just posted in the chat box, I was speaking to Judy Limpert, and I'll just talk what Katie's thoughts were. BMB is very proactive right now, and they're really trying to help. As Katie said, they are requiring that you open up a checking account with them. But from what Judy was telling me, it does not have to be a complete move of all your accounts. If you open up an account, whatever you deposit in that account, that'll get you on their list to be on their PPP list. So she sent me some the applications and some required docs that they need to process the loans. I thought it would be helpful for everybody. So I posted it in the chat. If anyone has any questions, there's a lot going on in the benefits arena. We hosted a few calls ourselves in the last week to go through that. If anybody has any questions on any of that, I'll just mention real quick, the DFS did, they haven't issued regulations yet, but they did come out with a deferral of premium for any organization or business that needs to take advantage of that up until June 1st. They haven't issued any regulations. So as of right now, it's a matter of speak with your brokers, speak with your health insurance carriers, let them know what your intentions are. Those premiums will have to be paid by June 1st. And so it's, and that would be a retroactive termination back to the date that you owed, whether that be April 1st or May. That is in place as right now to offer some relaxed guidelines for premium payments.
Great.
And I have a question for you.
Great to see everybody.
And with the PPP, what is the, I'm my executive director's dealing with all of the available programs that are out there. But with the PPP, what is the guidelines in terms of agents, staff size, and how many employees that if you qualify, or if there is a limit on that? I don't really know.
I think it's up to 500 employees.
Right.
And it's 1 to 500 employees qualify from what we've seen. But if you have organizations, like some businesses have affiliated organizations, particularly the restaurant industry this applies to, they're saying that, they'll judge each organization, each location by its employee side. Right. They have not mentioned that as it relates to nonprofits that I've seen, but they have definitely made mention of that when it comes to the restaurant industry.
And is there any guidance, Ken Serini, as far as those groups that are above 500 employees and what sort of relief there is for them? Are you still there, Ken?
Yeah, I'm here. The 500 has been relaxed a little for for-profit businesses that have under $15 million worth of net worth and an average over the last 2 years of $5 million worth of revenue after tax. But obviously that doesn't apply to the nonprofit sector, and we haven't seen anything in the nonprofit sector that is comparable. If you are over 500 and you are below the average of the NCAIS code for your, industry, you may still qualify, but I haven't seen that happen a lot. So really, if that's the case, then there are other provisions of the CARES Act that might be beneficial. We're still waiting for more information on the EIDL loans and what those are going to look like. There is no forgiveness component of those, but that might be helpful. There's also another component of the CARES Act, which deals with ERC. It's the ERC, which is a credit for employees, where you can get up to a credit of $5,000 per employee that you have for larger companies. But again, there's some specific criteria there too. But if you do have any of those situations, more than happy if you want to reach out to us. I'll pass on some information, and then we can see where we can go from there.
Thanks again, Ken. Matt Thompson, would you mind coming off mute for a second, if you're still there? So,
yeah, I'm here.
Great. So in the chat box, Elise Pecorino asked the question, as a board chair. So we're going to look at this from a different viewpoint. Mark brings it up, and obviously other people have talked about the importance of the board relationships now, and leveraging your board and truly treating your board as partners in this time, as always, but even more so now. So the question was, as a board chair, what do you expect from the ED and the leadership team? Matt, if you could just tell us who you are and relative to the sector, and then answer that question if you don't mind a bit. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm Matt Thompson. I'm the board chair for the American Red Cross, and I'm happy to see a lot of friends. Hopefully everyone's staying safe and healthy, and homeschooling is the best thing ever, I think. So I was saying this because I've had a lot of conversations with my ED on Long Island, and also just sort of along the East Coast as well, as we've been sort of faced with new challenges. But I think it's really, there's no expectation on a board that the EDs or the leadership team is going to have all the answers, because the board doesn't have all the answers. Board members are running their own companies and working in places, and things are changing all along. So the expectation that someone's going to think you have all the answers. I think just isn't there. I think the expectation is to having an open dialogue. Yes. And just saying, here's what's going on. What do you think? This is what we're thinking about. What have you done? Who do you know? Whatever else. And I think that's the expectation now. And I think that if you're not raising your hand and saying, I don't understand what's going on, I think you're doing a disservice to the organization. I think that, you know, there's so many resources out there that people that are dealing with certain aspects of everything on a day in and day out basis, that you don't know everything and you can't be the expert.
Matt, thank you for that perspective, and I'm really glad you're here. And I literally, the little hairs on the back of my neck stood up there, because this is a partnership, man. This is relationships. People, you don't know what to do, so ask for help, and that's what hit me out of what you said. So thanks for being here.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks for what you do for everybody. Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go back, and we have a couple things popping in. I don't know if that's something, open dialogue. That's okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go back to sharing the screen, and I'm gonna go back to my esteemed panel and ask if we could talk about communication for a second, because we've danced around a lot of this, but this is one of the quotes that came up on our prep call. This is not the time to be quiet. You gotta engage with your staff, with your board, with your donors, with your volunteers. Awesome, you gotta do it. The question is, how do you do it? So that's what I pitched to you guys, and whoever starts talking first gets to speak.
I'll chime in here.
Is that Amanda?
No, yeah, it's Amanda.
Sure.
So what I've been doing is I've been sending weekly sort of roundup emails to the board and, you know, all of our chapter leadership. So those emails have been going out weekly, which is just basically here's what's going on. Here's what's going on up at National. Here's what you can expect to happen over the course of the next week. You know, and if you need anything, let us know. So I've been doing that weekly. And as it relates to our donors, I've put the entire staff. We are not in active solicitation mode. You know, I personally don't know that now is a good time to be making hard asks for our organization and our community. But what I have had the entire staff mobilized around is calling every single person we have in our database. So every single person in our database is getting a phone call to let them know that we are not calling to ask for money. We are simply calling to check in on them, see how they're doing, see if they need anything from us, make sure that they have seen all of the resources that we have been emailing out during this time, and to find out from them if there's anything that they think we should be providing that we're not providing. We've mobilized very quickly around doing more webinars. We've enlisted a lot of our physicians and educational experts to move a lot of programming that was originally scheduled to happen face-to-face into a virtual environment, including our national conference, which was supposed to be happening in Minneapolis in May. So we've really ramped up all of our communications, and I've been doing every 2 weeks you know, these video recordings of myself, which I always find incredibly difficult to do and I truly hate, but I think it's been important to send them out and just make sure that the entire community understands that we are all still very present and we are actively working, because I do think, you know, particularly for those that are dealing with mental health issues, as our community does, you know, Tourette syndrome is often co-occurring with other psychiatric conditions, even though it's a neurological condition. You know, the anxiety that the community is experiencing, I think knowing that there are people who are always available to them, whether they utilize us or not, has been really important. And we've been getting a lot of positive feedback from our community on the phone calls, that they're appreciating the fact that we're reaching out just to check in on them. You know, it's not a hard ask, you know, thank you for your past support if you've given, but if you haven't, that's not really what this call is about, kind of a thing. And we've just found that that's been very successful on all fronts.
Thank you for sharing.
So I want to just jump in there too. Yep. So you make some great points, Amanda. Some of the things that we were kind of talking about leading up to this was the fact that the need to communicate is so vital because of how people have responded to non-communication in the past. So we recently had a call with AFPLI, and one of main topics has been communication being key. And in reference, like the last situation that we have like this, not obviously a pandemic, but let's 9/11, the last disaster, and mentioned the fact that when nonprofits went quiet, they fell under the radar. And because they did not communicate more consistently and just update people on where they are and what they stood and what they were doing and how they were navigating, that it ended up being detrimental to some of them, where funding started slowing down or stopped because people didn't know what was going on with them, where they were going, how they were faring. And some of them, ended up having to shut down. Others, they had some longer term effects where funding and things like that kind of dwindled. So this has been kind of top of mind, that communication is not only key, but timing on your communication, the messaging of your communication, the consistency of your messaging to staff, to board, to donors. So, we're trying to be mindful of that. We have a Zoom call with the staff every single day. What are we working on? What are we working towards? Constant communication with the board, the full board, the executive committee, the chairs. We're, speaking to them on a consistent basis, letting our donors know that we care, but also communicating messages around giving and making appeals. Like Katie had said earlier, this, for some, not all, but for some nonprofits, this is the time it is really necessary and that is important, and it can be an easier ask, especially if you're suffering. Like, they need to know where you are, how you're doing, and they need to know how to be able to support you. And that's another piece of communication that's really, really key. At a conversation with Neil Fleischman, who is the president of the Queens Botanical Gardens, and he was really interested in knowing how people are supporting nonprofits, and if nonprofits are letting people know how they can be supported. He said he gets the question a lot, or the comment a lot. Oh yes, I love charities, I love nonprofits, I support them. And then he asked them, oh, how are you doing that? And he's like, well, I follow them on Facebook, and I follow them this, and I follow them that. But support is actually a verb, it's an action. So, if people don't know how they can support you, then they can't do anything but, follow you on Facebook, and all of that stuff is great to have followers, but nonprofits need support, whether it's volunteers, whether it's funding. And this is a time that we have to be vulnerable, and we have to be transparent. We have to be mindful. We have to make sure that our message is clear and on point, but we have to keep communicating. And that means in every possible way that it's possible, making those video messages. I made one, I'm not comfortable with it too. It wasn't fun, it didn't feel good. Making those video messaging, making sure that you're emailing and communicating, picking up the phone, making calls to sponsors, funders, to the people that you serve. Like, every form of communication right now is necessary and is vital. Making sure that you're showing up on social media. Like, this stuff has to be done, because the fear is if you go quiet, you go under the radar. You go under the radar, then you are actually potentially impacting your funding now and in the future. And it's not just all about funding. Like, we do need that support. We need people rallying around our causes. We need people partnering with us and standing behind us and standing beside us and volunteering. And communication is key to making sure that that's happening now, and that it's sustaining, and that it's going to happen beyond this particular epidemic or this particular pandemic.
Renee, thank you. As always.
I just want to say, I 100% agree with what both of you ladies have to say about it. And now is that opportunity. I mean, there are times when, this is stuff we should be doing in the normal course of business under normal circumstances that we don't have time to do because we're busy running around, we're busy planning events, we're tied up doing other activities that sometimes take us away from what our core activities should be. As a development director, for me, reaching out to our people. And we all sometimes feel like, we kind of can't be, I don't want to say we should be shameless in asking, but we can't be afraid to ask, especially during this time. My point earlier is, like, we're never in crisis. We always need money, always need money. We support people, and we always need money because we never get enough. We all have gaps. We all have to fill in those holes. But now is a crucial and very, very distinct need to keep our programs going. Heather, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what you do. What type of organization are you involved in? Or was it Heather or someone, or Amanda? I'm sorry, Amanda. What is it that you do?
I'm the president of the Tourette Association of America.
Okay, so you have a lot of people that you serve also, and their well-being is very important at this time. So I think it is important to reach out. It is important to speak to people. Now is the time to build those relationships that we don't always have time to build. While we have the time, and working from my kitchen counter, I can certainly do that without distraction. So, I think there's an opportunity here for us. I come from a business background, and I just came from a business meeting before joining here. And the whole purpose is, how do we turn some of this, we're not trying to capitalize or to exploit our individuals to raise money at this time, but how do we look for new opportunities to do the things we do and to maintain that connection to people?
I'm going to just jump in here for a second. So Wendy, thank you. And thank you everybody for that feedback. And I'm wondering if, this probably rolls out into another conversation just around development at some point, and we can, and how to, Renee, everything you're talking about, I was hearing the word mindset, and it's how do we wrap our head around being able to ask. I mean, I'll share my own challenge from we run an insurance benefits agency, and there was a point where I said, you can't be contacting prospective clients at this time. And I think, though, at some point we all have to understand that this is where we are. This is how life is. And there has to be some sort of normal part of business, and nonprofits are businesses, right? So I wonder at some point if we take another call and explore, the techniques, best practices now and forever. I mean, Christine and I we called them the dynamic duo of development. And I believe they're both on the call, Laura Marzo and Linda Berman, Lauren of the Viscardi Center and Linda of the Corporate Source. And we had a lot of fun with that day. But maybe it's time to bring that stuff back, because it's maybe now, obviously, to your point, Wendy, none of the coffers are ever full. We're always in development mode. And maybe we need to revisit some of that. I'm opening this up to any sort of dialogue and questions around communication. Mark, where are you? Because I know you're here, but I can't find you on my screen. Can you just talk about communication, whether it be with the board or the donors? I'll let you take it from there, what you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think for us, and again, I don't think there's an exact science. I mean, for my organization, one of the things I've been trying to do, obviously, is and Renee talked about all of this, is staff. You want to make sure you have some consistency with the staff, so they know where you are, that you're on stable ground, and what the goal is as a team. The board, obviously, I shared already with how often I'm meeting with the board and keeping updated with them. One of the other things that I've been doing with not only with staff but with board is, and this is kind of my own personal thing, I've been reaching out one-on-one to everybody personally, just like nothing to do with business, nothing to do with the charity, really checking in on how they're doing, how they're dealing with this, because, I know for myself, it's been very challenging to deal with emotionally. And, you go through good days, bad days where normally you try to, especially as a leader of an organization, which many on the call are, people look to you and they read off of you, how you are. And if you come into work and you're down in the dumps and, oh, this is terrible, blah, 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 that kind of sets the tone for the rest of your team and those that are around you. So I've been just trying to stay positive and check in with my board, my staff personally. And then the last piece is obviously our donors. My director of development, one of the tasks, because again, we've held back on, we've actually postponed, we made a decision to postpone all of our events for 2020, particularly fundraising events that have honorees. I just didn't feel like, I made the recommendation to the board and thankfully they agreed. I just didn't feel it was fair to honorees to put that pressure on them. These are individuals that are struggling and challenging with their own companies. And obviously they wouldn't have agreed to be an honoree for our organization if they weren't passionate. And then to add that pressure on, how am I going to succeed in this environment and this unknown, way of life to raise money for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we actually made a decision just to basically say any of our honorees for this year, We reached out to them. We said we want to move it to next year. But my director of development right now is literally, and I can't remember who said it, but someone said, we're just reaching out. I think Amanda did, reaching out to all of our past supporters, checking in with them on personally to see how they're doing. And that's what it's all about. We're in human services. This is the time where we can really focus on that human piece, and check in with people to see how they're doing. And I think in the long run, those are a couple, I keep trying to play on the positives that are going to come out of this. Obviously, technology is going to be tremendous as we move forward. Everything that we're doing on this call, and everybody's going to incorporate it into their organization, their business, and it's going to make things a lot more efficient. I think the other positive that's going to come out of it, at least for our organization, is the personal connection that my staff are having with our volunteers, with the families that we're providing support to. When you come from a larger national organization, and there's a lot of positives to it, there's standards of practice that you have to follow. Sometimes it's very regimented, and I don't want to use the word cold, but it's, you need to ask, when you're on a call, you need to ask these 5 questions, and they're checking the box as social workers. And sometimes that's not so great, as opposed to just picking up the phone and saying, hey, how are you doing? What's going on in your life, and not focusing on making sure you ask the 5 questions. Because if you do have those normal, I tell my team all the time, if you do have those normal conversations, 9 times out of 10, all those answers to the things you need to check the box are going to come out. They're just going to come out in an easier, more personal format, where you're going to build a bond and trust with the client you're serving. So I think those are a couple of the positive things.
Isn't it just more of, this is not a transaction, right? I'm a human. Right. You're a human. This is a relationship, right? Things like my parents kind of taught me, like stuff like that. Like that's how we're supposed to engage and interact. I want to jump over to my friend Katie. Can you hold that thought? Can you write it down? All right. I want to bring Lauren Marzo into the conversation. Lauren, introduce yourself and what's hitting you. What do you want to share with us that's relevant to what we're talking about, please?
Sure. Thanks, Tommy. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I've been on mute this whole time. Just want to say hello to everyone. I think I know a lot of you already, and I think it's really great, Tommy, that we're doing these calls. I know Christine and Frank, you've been setting up a lot of things like this so that we could all share resources. I think it's really important during this time. And just in the development world, and I know we've touched upon this a lot already, but just the communication, the personal communication, because I think we could all send out emails, we could all do social media, and everyone's doing that, and it's great. We absolutely have to almost over communicate at this point. But I know I have a goal of reaching at least 5 donors a day by phone. Hopefully I get to them. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that the people I've spoken to all want to continue to support us at this time if they can. Of course, it's a very sensitive topic. I've actually had to ask people if their typical support that would come at this time of year would be something we can count on. And it's sort of that difficult conversation anytime you're asking for money, but now it's even more difficult. But if you have a good relationship with donors, it's really not that difficult. You're having just a nice, friendly conversation, then you find a way to work it in. So we've been fortunate that a lot of our donors are still contributing at this time, but again, it's really a case-by-case basis. Not everyone can do it, and we're really treading lightly on the hard asks. I wrote in the chat before that we put a donate button on the bottom of all of our weekly emails, and we could also allow people to fundraise through Facebook, but we're not doing a really strong hard ask at this point. We are doing an auction. This is something that if you do events, like most of us do, and they're canceled right now, you can still continue with some virtual aspects of the event. So we're doing an auction, which we would normally do for our big sports night event. And that's actually going online today. It's open for a month. It's not real fundraising. I mean, people can buy items and then we get some of the proceeds, but that's something to consider if you have, if you typically do auctions at your events, you can do it online. It's like $600 a year for Bidding for Good. That's the platform we use. So we're hoping to raise a little bit that way, but again, it's really about being very sensitive at this time to our donors and just staying in constant communication so that we're always top of mind for them. And if they want to help in some specific way, we're giving them ways to help.
Thank you, Lauren. So we are about 2 minutes away from the time I had allotted for us today. Katie, if you can jump in real quick, and then Frank Orzo, I'm going to ask you to mention what you want to talk about. We're going to have to talk about it on a subsequent conversation. So Katie, quick, and then Frank, and then we'll probably wrap up. Katie, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So we all wear a million hats for our staff, and you know, we all always say, and I hear my staff say it all the time, like, I wish we could just hit pause for a minute so we could catch up, so we can get things done, so we could get to those projects we never get to do. So one of the things that I'm guiding my staff on now is to create those lists and to make sure that during this pause time, because this is the, you know, the ultimate pause, that this is the time to catch up on all of that, to regroup, you know, to get all that done. So just to leave that with everybody, that during this pause to guide your staff to get those things done, the bigger picture projects, while we keep the daily stuff going, which is the opposite. Usually we're the bigger picture project, but we have to be the one getting the daily stuff to keep us rolling. It's like a role reversal almost, but anyway, just those thoughts on the ultimate pause. What are we doing? You know, what are we guiding them to do? So, and I wish everybody well, really, you know, getting through this. And I commend you all on getting yourselves and your organization through all of this. Thank you, Tommy. Thanks, Christine, Renee, Mark, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. If you'll afford me 4 more minutes, I'd appreciate it. And then we can get through, just because I want to say goodbye to everybody. If you have to go, I totally get it. Sneak away quietly, please. Frank Orzo, you want to jump in real quick? And we will definitely readdress this on another call.
Sure. Frank Orzo, co-founder and partner with Christine Desker at Nonprofit Sector Strategies. One phrase that Christine and I have been using quite a bit in the past month is that opportunities present themselves in times of crisis. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of the organizations, but one fact is we don't know when this is going to end, but one fact we do know is that the economic infrastructure is not going to be the same when it does end. And to that point, the statistics show that many of the nonprofits today are not going to survive. So there's going to be a survivor pool and a non-survivor pool. Listening to all the folks on this call, I'm pretty confident that we're all going to be in the survivor pool, but this is an opportunity and that could present itself if you're considering expanding, either by looking at a potential partner in a merger and acquisition world, or even if they're not a similar organization to yourself, but they're tangential to your mission. You should really be thinking hard and fast about that potential of looking at merging or acquiring another nonprofit that aligns with your mission. Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you, Frank. Thank you, Frank. A great point, and I will reference back to I didn't know that it was such a big deal when we did it, but I asked Ken Serini's team to come out on site. We were at Options for Community Living back in February. It was our last in-person roundtable, and Ken spoke about strategic alliances and acquisitions and things of that nature, both amongst organizations and then amongst strategic relationships with for-profits as well. We are at time. I put my contact info in the chat box. Reach out. I just want to know, do we want to do more of these? You can nod your head now if you want to.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Welcome. We didn't get to know you, but we will. Send me an email. It's in the chat box. We're only because we're out of time, and I want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time and to get moving on the rest of the day. Thank you again to Christine and Frank and Ed from Vanguard and Nonprofit Sector Strategies. Thank you so much for Katie, for Renee, and for Mark, and for everybody's involvement, because I knew in my mind what I wanted this to be, and I'm appreciative that it was way beyond my expectations were. Let me know how I can help. Let me know if you wanted to meet somebody on here and you didn't yet. I'll make those connections for you. Thanks for being here. Talk to you all soon. Have an incredible day. Bye now.
Right. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Nice to meet everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.